The United States is one of a very few number of countries that has not ratified the Conventions on the Rights of the Child. Ireland has, and along with most of the rest of the world, is excited about making decisions with children and committing to it on paper. So how do they do it? Today we're going to look at a framework that is actually the Ireland national framework for making decisions with children, with youth. And so if you're a leader of a school, this episode is for you. Here we go. Very long guide that I am referencing here. There are so many different checklists and pieces of this framework that is based on Lundy's 4 elements, which we've talked about before. Having space, voice, influence, and audience are 4 components of student voice or children's voice. That is really critical. So this is kind of your everyday spaces checklist. They advise using this in things like classrooms and schools. So we're going to use this today. Let's take a look. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit. First space, right? It's how can we literally create the space for children, young people to feel safe, right? Perceived safety to express their views. Have you allowed enough time? Is it just a one-off? Did we just have 10 minutes, right? Thinking about the amount of time that we allocate. How do you make sure all children are heard, right? Is it just the loudest voices who are in the space? Voice, right? I mean, you can go through all these. I don't need to read them to you, but I'm going to link to some of the checklists that you can download and this guide, which is comprehensive. It's about 60 pages that you can download in the video below. But I just want to kind of go through a couple things really quickly. So for voice, right, it's about how they're offered different ways of giving their views. Lundy talks about this as facilitating voice. What are the structures or supports that we give students to be able to have the capacity to literally voice the things, to say the things, to share the ideas? I don't want to say, because that's a little ableist language, but how do we share? Influence. How will children and young people know they've had influence? Are they getting feedback? In our next video next week, we're talking about Lundy's 4 F's of feedback and kind of the process of this. So tune in for that. And how are you going to show that you are there to listen, right? You are there to make sure that they understand what you as a leader, as an adult, can do with the views. How are you going to partner moving forward? What can happen? What can't happen? What are the constraints of the decision making that has to happen? So you can see there's a lot of things. Now, I also love this. There's some for groups. There's some for online groups. There's individuals. Let's look at this one. So you have demographic information up top related to age and gender, identity. You have the 4 components here, and it's really like a 1 to 5 rating scale using stars where students get to evaluate the space, voice, audience, and influence that were given to them. And so thinking about, anything else that would have helped you, thinking about both the quantitative and the qualitative balance of data that you're getting here is awesome. Now, I showed the guide specifically because I'm going to scroll down here for you. Down here, you have a ton of examples that you can see of who is doing what. So these are different examples of people using this framework. And so they go through and they say, here, for this example, here's exactly how space was held, voice was facilitated, audience, right? And so you can look at how other folks and institutions are doing this, find one that resonates with you, and use it as a case study. Learn from it. Look through it and review it with your leadership team. Just love this so much. As I said, I'm going to link to the actual documents as separate checklists. So if you know the checklist that you want, you can just go in and get that kind of 1-pager and use it. Tell me how it goes. Tell me if the students respond, if you had to adjust anything in any way, and tell me which of the 4 elements from Lundy's framework are the most challenging for you, and let me help you out.